procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
What is happening? After the recent force wipe, many players have been looking for a new base design. So with that in mind, I set out to build a base that was not only strong, however could also be built by a solo, duo, or trio group. The base I came up with uses roof stacking to guarantee one of the strongest designs I have on my channel. I was very influenced by Evil Worst's Phoenix version 3. The link to his video will be in the top right corner. Thanks to the floor stacking, the raid cost through any side of our bunker will be 27 rockets. To gain access to our TC, top floor and bottom floor loot rooms, the cost will be between 40 and 50 rockets. And of course that is if the outside turrets pose no threat to the raider. We'll get right into a base tour, a raid test, and afterwards I'll give a full tutorial of how to build the design. As you can see, coming into the airlock, we get a Dropbox room, which holds bags and a repair bench. Continuing through the second airlock door, we get access to a research table, large box, 3 sleeping bags, and the drop down from our roof. This is all guarded by an auto turret. Notice that we can close the exterior auto turret doors through the wall. Continuing on through the garage door path, we have a room for furnaces, lockers, or extra bags if needed. We also have a window frame to access our second outside turret. On the left, we get to our first 4-box semi-loot room. Opening the adjacent garage door, you can see we have a square which holds 7 more large boxes. This totals to 13 large boxes on our second floor. The garage door on the left side of the loot room leads us towards our bunker. Note that armored doors are not necessary in these positions. However, I found them a good counter to the weakness of the ladder hatches. Opening the first ladder hatch, the floor stacking is apparent, with another hatch hiding right below. Heading down our chute, we get access to the main bunker. Down here we have our tier 3 workbench, 2 small boxes, and enough space for 3 bags. You may question how the bunker works with the lack of raised foundations. However, we will come back to this in just a moment. For now, let's continue on to the next loot room. Heading through the garage door, we get 4 boxes which can store some of your best loot. Through another 2 garage doors and 3 furnaces, we get access to the TC and 5 more large boxes. The TC upkeep, which I feel is very manageable for a duo, trio, or even a solo, is on the screen now. Now I will quickly explain how the stability bunker works without the use of any raised foundations. This design works because the height of the foundations in the bunker floor is slightly lower than the foundations in the drop-down chute. So when we use a half wall and triangle roof to seal the bunker, they do not connect with the walls in the drop-down. So whenever it is that we're ready to leave our base or head off for the night, to seal our bunker we're going to head onto our furnace, place in a half wall of twig, and then jump until you're able to place in a triangle roof piece. This may take a few tries, however when you get it, simply upgrade the roof to armored and you can log off knowing your base is secure. When you get back on and you're ready to open up the bunker, spawn in your bag and break out the twig half wall with either a tool or even your rock. So now with the base tour out of the way, let's get right on to the raid test. One of the most common ways to raid a base like this is to drill down through the top. After 4 rockets, the roof stacking is visible and any lower tier raiders should be scared off. If the raider decides to continue, it will be another 8 rockets to drill down into our second floor. Once this section of the base is open, the raider will have access to the research table and furnaces. However, they will have to spend a few more rockets to get to your first loot room. Now the raider gets to a tough decision. They can see a box coming through what looks to be another loot room, or they can choose to go through the armored door path which leads towards our bunker. If the raider decides to go through the armored doors, they will have to spend another 8 rockets to get to our ladder hatches. The raider may think they caught themselves a break until they find out there's an armored roof hidden right underneath. At this point, most players would have already given up, however if we choose to go down through the bunker, it will be another 15 rockets. Dropping down our chute, we now have access to the tier 3 and some bags. However, there's no sign of the TC, so we'll continue through the garage door path. Blowing through the first garage door, we finally get access to one of the main loot rooms. And through 2 more doors and 45 rockets later, we have access to the TC and all main loot. A very expensive raid for any type of group. Note that this raid cost will stay the same no matter what side they go through. This includes drilling through the side, drilling straight down, or even going through doors. So with all the stats out of the way, let's get right on to the floor stacking tutorial. To floor stack, we start crouched by placing down a triangle foundation. Now lift the mouse off the table and only use the keys A and D to ensure your player does not change their orientation when moving. Now we move left or right until the next foundation comes up as blue. Then place in the other triangle right after you release the crouch button. This should give you a slight elevation to the second triangle. Now we can place walls on both foundations. If your player's orientation didn't move, they should both come up as blue. Some things to avoid is a gap in between your walls, and make sure the foundations are not too far apart or close together in elevation. Sometimes it will seem to work at first, just like you can see in my example now. Notice I am able to place in the roof on top, then fill in the bottom one. However, this will not work the other way around. I used the triangle floor frames to make sure the foundations are placed correctly. Note that if it works, you should have a slight gap in elevation between the two frames. To test it, make sure you place the bottom floor first and then the top one. If everything looks good, then we're ready to continue on to the next step. To begin, stand on the lower of the two foundations and we will build off two squares. Then off the back right, place in another triangle and square. Now remove the two lower triangle foundations and begin building off the raised one. I will give you a top-down view of the base, which you can follow to make sure all the foundations will fit in the area around you. Also make sure that all the walls on the foundations show up as blue. If any come up as red, sadly the base will not work here. However, this is the best time to restart since it'll only cost you a bit of wood. With all my foundations placed down and the walls showing up as blue, we're ready to build the starter base. Start by upgrading all the lower foundations to stone. Now we can surround the upgraded foundations with walls and also add in an airlock. Make sure the door frames to your airlock are only upgraded to wood, since we'll be picking them out later on. Upgrade all the walls to stone and then head over to our back square. We will now build a triangle off our TC room. Don't forget this because we will use it later on to fit in more boxes. For now, we can also use it as a temporary way to our roof. Heading up top, we now place in our roof pieces. Make sure you place them on the lower foundations so you have a slight overhang on a few walls. We need to continue to build quickly since right now the soft sides of our walls are exposed on the top. To complete the starter base, upgrade the roof above your airlock to wood and the rest to stone. This wooden roof will eventually be our drop down, but for now let's head back inside and place in a TC. You may have trouble when trying to place the TC in the back corner. I noticed the twig was blocking it from the outside, so I went outside and upgraded the according foundations. However, while I was out there, I decided to upgrade all the rest of them just to save a bit of time. If you don't have the stone for this just yet, you can just skip this step for now. The build cost for starter version 1 is now on the screen. With that finished, let's begin starter version 2. We can start by placing double door frames throughout the bunker. From this point forward, I will upgrade all the base to its final grade. If you don't have the HQM yet, you can just use metal fragments. However, as the wipe goes on, be sure to upgrade your base to armored. When ready, hatchet out all the wooden walls, including the roof. Now we can complete the chute. We will upgrade the new and old walls in our chute and bunker to HQM. Also, we will upgrade the foundations to sheet metal. Depending on how high off the ground your foundations are, you may need to upgrade them to armored as well. Let's also upgrade the double door frames to metal, just to limit the amount of splash damage rockets can do in our bunker. If you don't have a ladder hatched just yet, we can build a temporary way up to get to our second floor. Just leave this build as twig. Heading back up onto our second floor, we can now surround some of our bunker's HQM walls with sheet metal. We can also build in an airlock. Make sure these single doors are only wood and not stone, since we'll be picking them out later on to add in armored double doors. Next, we'll add in metal walls, protecting the bunker drop down. The wall on the right side should be backwards, since it will be protecting a loot room. We can now fill in the rest of the airlock using a metal wall and a wooden door frame. And of course, don't forget to upgrade the roofs above the airlock to metal. Now we can place in the walls for our 1x1. On the right side wall, you should use 2 half walls instead of a full one. This is because we'll need a triangle piece coming off later on. Since we won't be storing anything here for the moment, we'll only need a wooden door on the frame. Now, going around the base, we will hide any areas where we can see armored with honeycomb and metal. The faster we can do this, the better, since we don't want any potential raiders to see our base layout at this stage. If your outside foundations are off the ground quite a bit, you should try to upgrade these to metal as well, since if the foundation is too high, the raider may be able to blow out the stone and then crouch underneath. With that finished, we can now make a temporary way up to our roof by using a twig triangle. And heading back up onto our second floor, we can now fill in the tops of our honeycomb. Any honeycomb that connects to the bunker walls should be filled in by a metal roof, which will later be covered up by the second layer of stone floor. If you're having trouble, you can place in some of the triangles from inside our metal 1x1. Quickly, while I upgrade all these triangles to metal, I want to say thank you guys so much for 1,300 subscribers and also all the recent support. I plan to continue uploading very soon, and we'll get back onto our normal schedule. With our metal roofs upgraded, we can now start to fill in our stone honeycomb. To start, go to the 2x1 portion of the base and move clockwise around the design. Start by adding honeycomb on the inner squares and the triangles. We will also fill in the square with 2 walls, since using a roof piece here will create a weak point. Now we can fill in any extra squares with roof tiles. It's very important to place the top of the roof facing towards the metal wall. This will ensure that any raiders will only see stone from the outside. Do this all around the base, and in the end you should not be able to see any sheet metal or HQM on the bottom floor. Now using the roof ramps, we can get back up to our second floor and fill in all of the honeycomb. The overall cost for starter version 2 is on the screen now. With this finished up, let's begin to add an entrance for our base. Note you may have to play around with the angle of the door to get it in place. Looking either up or down usually will help. If you don't want to use or don't have glass windows, you can use shop fronts for the Dropbox room instead. And next up, we'll add in the auto turret nest. If you don't think you'll end up getting glass windows at all, you can use a single door frame instead of the window. Build a jump up to what will be our roof floor by using twig off of one of our angled roofs. At this moment, the jump to our roof will be too high to make. However, if you need to get up, you can add a second layer of twig floor. Now we will continue around the base using stone walls to honeycomb. On our second triangle after the roof access, we will build another auto turret compartment. Something to note is that you will not be able to see the third turret from inside your base. This is why electricity is very important. As soon as you get a solar panel, switch, and door controller, you should try to have them set up. Before we fill in the honeycomb next to our 1x1 loot room, I will add in the second layer of floor because it will not interfere with the walls in our base build. After filling in our honeycomb with metal, we will make the door path to our loot room. We will only need to upgrade these frames to stone. And after adding in a few more frames, we're going to head up onto our roof floor. Notice I used twig to build the second layer to get up to our crouch jump. We can now fill in the rest of our honeycomb. Go over to the triangles you see now and fill in both sides with walls. However, you can leave the open square since it will make no difference to the raid cost. And just like we did with the roof of our starter base, add in the bottom layer of twig on the top roof floor. Any outer roof pieces that only can fit one layer can be left in stone. However, the inner ones should be all upgraded to metal except the triangle above the airlock. Remember to leave out your triangle for the roof access. Now we can place in the second layer of twig on the very top. Upgrade the middle pieces above the loot rooms and bunker to metal and all the rest of them to stone. Now we can add in the crouch jump walls to our roof. If you don't have garage doors just yet, you'll have to wait to use the roof access. Hopping back down, we're going to add a low wall right underneath our drop down. Even if you don't have an auto turret just yet, I would still recommend trying to place in a shotgun trap or flame turret. This will avoid anyone coming deep on your base. Now let's begin to place in doors, since once our second layer of the floor is in place, placing in doors will be a bigger challenge. If you use a garage door for the Dropbox room in our airlock, make sure the roller is facing into the 1x1. This ensures you're able to close it afterwards. It's important that you understand you can still replace doors if they're broken in a potential raid. I found that adding doors is very easy to do if you're either a floor below or above the door frame. This tip goes for garage doors, double doors, or single doors. Next, let's add in the glass windows on the 4 slots throughout the base. And going back to our old loot room, we can pick out our wooden door frames and remove the wooden door from our 1x1. If you did upgrade the single door frames, it's not a big deal. The raid cost will still be 38 rockets to main loot. If you were able to pick them out, we can now add in double door frames, upgrade them to stone, and place in armored double doors. Even the sheet metal double doors will work here, just don't use garage doors since the roller will not be visible through the roof. Now we can add in our triangle floor tile off our upper loot room. If you made the wall out of half walls, this will be easy. However, if it's a full wall, you'll have to use the following guide. We're going to build up with twig and make a triangle roof into the side of our base, right next to the 1x1. This method works just the same way, however the only annoying thing is that now you will always have a triangle floor hidden in your honeycomb. But this won't change the TC upkeep anyway, since you still need to upkeep the wood in your stability bunker. With all our doors and walls placed down, we can now build the second layer of the floor. Upgrade the entire second layer to metal, including the one above your airlock. Hopefully by this point you have acquired a couple ladder hatches. If so, build 2 triangle floor frames, upgrade them to stone, and add in both hatches as a new way to get to our bunker. With our twig gone, we can now add in the upper half wall for a stability bunker. With the base finished up, the overall base costs will be on your screen now. Let's begin to add the accommodations for the base. We'll start by adding in the last few garage doors. We can start with the Dropbox loot room. We can fit a repair bench, 2 small boxes, a large box, and even an extra bag. Just don't put anything too valuable in these boxes for too long since it won't be well protected. In our next room after the airlock, we will add in our auto turret. Normally, low walls will obstruct the view of a turret. However, in this case, since the low wall is exceptionally low, the turret will have no issues. We can also fit in a research table against the metal wall, followed by a large box and a few upper bags for your team. Heading quickly into the bunker, you can see how I added this last garage door. There was no problem placing it through the roof. Now we can begin to build our 7-box loot room. Start with 4 boxes on the bottom, then place in the triangle tile. You can now place a box on the edge, followed by a box in the back right. We will place in the final box in just a minute. For now, let's move on to the next upper loot room. Just like we did with the last, place in 4 boxes in a circular pattern. You may need to upgrade the double door frames to metal to allow the box to fit right in the corner. After the new loot room is in place, we can go back and easily add in the last 7th box to our first loot room. If needed, you can place 2 more bags or a locker in the entrance to our drop down. Now going into our bunker, we will add in a furnace right below our drop down, if the terrain will allow it. If not, a small box or even a lantern will work the same way. Let's add in our tier 3, 2 small boxes, and 3 bags. Moving into the next loot room, we can place in 4 more boxes just like the one above. If the area where you built the base is flat enough, you should be able to fit in 3 furnaces on the open triangle. If not, you can either fit in small boxes or stashes. Build your TC room like I do in my example. It will allow you to have the maximum space. Also, now we can add in that triangle floor that we built off the side of our loot room. This will come in handy, allowing us to fit in 2 more large boxes. At this point, the design is completely up to you. Add furnaces, boxes, and lockers wherever you'd like. Don't forget to add in the auto turrets and garage doors. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I wish you well in your next wipe. That's been it.